Can you even begin to fathom how much crude oil resources a nation with a population of 1.4 billion people uses while also being one of the major oil importers in the world? Every year, China spends $250 billion on the importation of oil. We analyzed the statistics for 2021 and discovered that China's annual crude oil consumption is 704 million tons, of which roughly 200 million tons are produced and processed inside China itself. This information was based on our projections for the year 2021. The remaining 500 million tons of oil are obtained from other countries in the form of imports. In contrast, given the present state of the world's oil supply, this raises a number of questions for us. Which nations provide China with its crude oil supplies? This is a channel about actual projects that people are working on. If you are prepared to help me out, would you mind clicking the link to subscribe to my channel? Discovering new and fascinating initiatives is something we should do together. Throughout the course of the last several decades, the majority of China's oil imports have originated from the Middle East and Africa, as well as the Asia, Pacific area, Russia, and Central Asia. The Middle East is China's primary source of oil imports, accounting for 52 of the country's total imports. Other sources also contribute to China's oil imports. The second largest source of China's oil imports comes from Russia, which accounts for 17.3% of China's total yearly oil imports. China is assisting African nations flourish in order for Africa to one day repay China for its assistance. Oil is exported from African nations to China. Africa is now the third basis for China's oil imports, accounting for 10.3% of the total annual oil imports. This makes Africa the third largest supplier of oil to China. Yet, were you aware that there's a developing nation in Africa that exports 50% of its annual oil production to China? Angola is still an extremely impoverished nation in the 21st century, with a per capita gross domestic product of just 1,900 United States dollars and with 50% of the population living on less than $2 per day. So, why is this oil-producing nation so impoverished? During the years 1975 and 2002, Angola was mired in a great deal of chaos. Because of the continuous conflict that has been going on for the last 27 years, Angola has not had the chance to develop its economy, which has further complicated the lives of the people who live there. Since the country's return to peace in 2002, Angola has been working to rebuild its economy. Nevertheless, Angola's domestic infrastructure was largely damaged during the conflict, making it difficult for the country's economy to take off. In addition to the destruction of a great number of industries, a significant amount of traffic has been disrupted. The growth of Angola is analogous to putting the country back together after it was destroyed. Most notably, Angola is home to a wealth of naturally occurring resources like oil. On the other hand, once Angola gained its independence, there was a significant loss of technical staff, which rendered the country incapable of developing any of its natural riches. Angola has no other option if it wants to generate revenue for post-war rehabilitation except to engage in exports. To begin, the fact that the two nations have worked together for such a significant amount of time has contributed to the very strong connection that exists between them. It is common knowledge that China and Angola have engaged in energy cooperation throughout the course of the last century. In 1992, Angola's total oil exports to China amounted to barely 200,000 tons. By another year, that quantity had risen to over 1.2 million tons, an increase of almost 400,000 tons. Most crucially, China has never tied any political ideology to its cooperative efforts with other nations. China is still able to supply Angola with cooperation in several domains including technology and human resources, both of which are of tremendous assistance to the economic growth of Angola. This collaboration is part of the process of China and Angola working together. The new style of bilateral collaboration between the two nations has been given the name the Angola Model. It is Angola's responsibility to utilize the country's oil in return for Chinese loans as they seek the most expedient means of assisting Angola in achieving a prosperous economy. Angola received its first loan from China in 2004, and the sum was equal to $2 billion in American currency. Angola used this loan toward the building of many types of infrastructure, including roads, trains, hospitals, and schools, as well as the irrigation of agricultural land. It is sufficient for Angola to repay the debt with the oil that it produces. In 2007, China and Angola successfully concluded the first stage of the cooperation agreement that had been in the works between the two countries since the previous year. China and Angola inked a cooperation deal with the same amount of $2 billion in order to strengthen the relationship that exists between the two nations. It is generally accepted that as of the year 2010, the total amount of the loan that China has supplied to Angola has reached $10 billion US. After obtaining assistance from China, Angola likewise expanded extremely quickly and quickly became one of the nations in Africa with the quickest economic development. This was accomplished in a very short period of time. China has increased its oil imports from Angola while simultaneously satisfying the requirements of the country's fast economic expansion. In addition, Angola lacks the capacity to construct oil refineries. Hence, the country can only rely on the economic systems of Western nations for an extended period of time and must depend on oil businesses based in the United States and Europe. Because of this, Angola is unable to take the first step toward achieving its independence. Joint ventures and other business arrangements have been used to facilitate China and Angola's entry into the oil exploration and development sectors of Angola's economy. In 2006, the two nations came to an agreement to collaborate on the construction of an oil refinery that would be owned by Angola. It is well knowledge that China owns 30% of the company's stock. In addition to this, China has sent a large number of its own specialists to Angola. After the refinery is finished being constructed, it will have the capacity to process 240,000 barrels of oil every single day, and 80% of that oil will be available for export to other nations in Africa. This refinery has single-handedly eradicated Angola's oil industry's historical backwardness and laid the newest and most strong basis for Angola to enhance its oil industry system. During the course of their cooperative relationship, the two nations have followed the example set by Angola. By following this technique, Angola was able to effectively beat Iran in 2004 to become the second biggest oil supplier to China. In 2010, Angola overtook Saudi Arabia to become China's top crude oil supplier. At this time, China receives 50% of Angola's yearly oil exports, which guarantees the reliability of China's oil supply. In addition to this, African nations have been able to recognize China's might as a result of the success of the Angola model. It offers a very significant reference value for the potential future collaboration between China and African nations. We appreciate you taking the time to view the video. If you think the video would be something you'd be interested in, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. In the future, let's collaborate on some more exciting topics to investigate together.